I vaguely felt myself being violated by the doctor during the anesthesia surgery, but after the operation, the doctor told me that it was just a hallucination caused by the anesthesia. But when I think back, I clearly remember seeing the doctor's face, and I am convinced that it was never an illusion. So I decided to go to another hospital for a checkup. The results showed that I did have someone else's DNA in my body. After I was sure that I had been assaulted, I went to the police station to report it to the police. But strangely, the FBI didn't believe me. They said the doctor had worked in town for 10 years, was a kind person, and everyone thought he couldn't have done such a thing. The policeman even vouched on his own character and told me he would never commit something like that. Nonetheless, I was adamant, and finally the case was filed. The police found the doctor, told him about my allegation, and asked him to provide a blood sample. Soon after, the doctor handed over the blood sample. The DNA test results showed that the DNA in my body did not match the doctor's at all. The FBI wasn't surprised though, because they still believed that, as a kind-hearted doctor, he wouldn't randomly violate a girl. Then, the FBI announced their investigation result, publicly declaring that the doctor had not violated me in front of my colleagues and students. This news discredited me, and I was outraged that I was treated in such a manner when I was clearly the victim. Angrily, I went to the police station and questioned whether the case was being handled according to the prescribed procedure. The chief, noticing my situation, questioned them, and the FBI admitted they hadn't followed the correct procedure. However, the FBI agent still vouched on his life that the doctor would never do something like that. Of course, I wasn't satisfied. I wanted the truth. I threatened the director that if I didn't reinvestigate, I would expose their misconduct through Shakeology. The director had no choice but to finally decide to reopen the case. This time, the FBI asked the doctor to provide a blood sample in front of everyone again. The doctor still cooperated with the blood draw and had a frank attitude. Soon, the test results again showed that the DNA in my body was completely different from the doctor's. This time, the chief personally supervised the blood collection process to ensure that no tricks were used. At this point, I finally fell silent. If I continued to pursue the matter further, I was afraid that I would be considered to be falsely accusing someone. Despite this, I was still convinced that I had been violated. I vaguely remembered seeing the doctor's face and felt deep down that this wasn't a simple matter. But after 2 acquittals, no one wanted to hear my explanation. Eventually, the case was forcibly closed, and I was asked to pay $200,000 in emotional damages. Since then, my reputation in town has been completely ruined. People thought I was delusional, and every time they saw me, their eyes were full of judgment. I gradually fell into autism and suffered from depression. I closed myself up in my home every day and was constantly tortured internally by memories of the doctor's aggression. My father couldn't stand it anymore and decided to take me to a different city to start a new life. Although he believed me, the test results could not negate the facts. My father began to advise me if I was misremembering, which made me start to waver and wonder if I was really mistaken. In order to get out of the shadow, I began to receive psychotherapy, and after a period of time, I gradually came out of the woods. However, in a conversation with my ex-husband, he advised me to let go, thinking that even if I was really violated, it would not cause too much damage. Don't do nothing all day. His words aroused the anger, and I was obviously not at fault, but I was blamed by everyone. What made me even angrier was one day when I overheard my daughter talking to a friend. The friend asked her why we moved, and without hesitation, my daughter said it was because I was lying. At that moment, I decided to fight for justice. I went back to my old city and asked the police department to reopen the case.